pasta doughs have the same ingredients, the same ratios. The only difference is one of them has sage. So what we start with is 6 egg yolks, 1 whole egg, 1 tablespoon of milk, a dash of salt, 2 tablespoons of Evo. Evo is true extra virgin olive oil, and extra virgin olive oil is a new marketing ploy to make lower end olive oil products sound like a higher end products. So when you're searching for Evo, extra virgin olive oil, look for the EVOO on the label. So now what we're going to do is we're going to open up our flour. We have weighed out here 8 ounces of flour, or you could, if you don't have a scale at your house, go ahead and measure it out to 1 cup and a little bit over a quarter. We're going to take our whole eggs, incorporate them into our well. So what we're going to do is we're going to make our well a little bit bigger. We want to make sure that there's enough room to stir the eggs and without overflowing. So this is an old Italian technique on making pasta. There's different ways you can do this. If you wanted to, you could just put it right in the KitchenAid and mix it, or if you have a Hobart mixer, you can use that too. The problem with that is if you incorporate the flour too quickly into the eggs, it actually gives the pasta like a more tough feel, and it kind of ruins the texture of what homemade pasta is. When we're doing it the old world style like this, you'll notice when the eggs are ready to take in the flour, the eggs will pull the flour in naturally versus forcing flour onto the eggs. So now the eggs are ready to take on a little bit more flour, so they're able to pull it in. You could actually add the flour to the well instead of just using the eggs to pull the flour in. So you'll notice the texture that's starting to build up here. They're starting to get more solid. It's not just a pile of eggs and flour. Now we're actually creating something. Our eggs are getting nice and thick. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to add our flour into it, just like that. Just going to kind of pat the flour down. You don't want to push it on the eggs, you just want to kind of roll it around. Like, just imagine that this flour is holding something inside of it. You don't want to let it break. You just want to keep rolling it, keep on rolling. It's starting to get thicker. The eggs are incorporating more and more flour. Here we're going to add a couple of our ingredients. We're going to add just a pinch of salt, a little bit of milk, and some of our extra virgin olive oil. This is a great example right here. If you can see, what happens if you add too much liquid into it is it's going to get really sticky like that. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to take a little bit of flour, add some more flour to it. Don't add too much. One thing you could always do is you can always add more. Anytime you're cooking or baking something and you're not sure exactly how much of an ingredient you need to add, just go ahead and add a little bit at a time, because you can always add more. If you put too much salt in, you ruin the whole product. So you'll notice that the pasta's forming, it's looking more like dough more and more. Now what we do is we have this pile of stuff that's stuck to the table. This is called a bench scraper. You can probably find it at pastry shops, specialty places, or even on the internet. And we're going to use that. What that does is it really helps scrape everything off the surface. It's got a nice flat blade on the bottom, so it prevents food from sticking. Very useful when cleaning. So now you'll notice we have pasta dough. Everything's come together, our ingredients are looking good. You're gonna knead it. It's called kneading. What you're gonna do is you're mixing the flour a little bit at a time, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. When we have sticking again, what we do is we hit it with a little bit more flour. When you make your own pasta, one of the biggest differences is not only the texture and the taste of the pasta, but the amount of cooking time. When you get pre-made pasta, it's hard as a rock. You got to boil it for 9 to 10 minutes. What really sets this pasta apart is it's really soft. The texture feels nice, it's smooth, and there is a flavor about it that is just out of this world. You'll know when you've had fresh pasta if you've never had it before. And this recipe you can use at home is just as good as any restaurant or any major producer of fresh pasta. So notice the dough starting to sponge back in like that, that's perfect. That's the gluten being activated in the flour. Now what we're going to do is we're going to let the pasta sit, wrap it in plastic wrap, and then stick it in the refrigerator for about half an hour. We're making one more batch of pasta. Now this is a nice cooking tip that you can do at home. Once you've tried and mastered the original form of pasta, what we have here is we have dried sage. What we do is we take our sage, we're going to add about 1 tablespoon of it. What that's going to do is it's going to change the color of the dough. It's also going to add a little bit different of a smell as the pasta is coming out to our dining patrons, but it also enhances the flavor of what you're eating. So say it's fall, you have roasted butternut squash and pasta. Well, instead of just doing a regular pasta, adding sage to your pasta is going to kind of just it's going to marry those flavors a little bit more, and it's going to bring your dish together. You're going to notice that there's some shades of green once again. That's our sage in there. And here we go again. Our dough's still a little bit wet, so we're going to add a little bit more flour to it. After letting our pasta sit for a half hour, we're getting ready to push it through our pasta machine and roll it out with our French rolling pin. So you can tell the difference. Here's our off-colored one, or I should say a certain shade of green. That is our sage-infused pasta. Then here is our traditional pasta. Look at the color difference in that. We're going to start with our sage-infused pasta. We'll take a little bit of flour. Always keep extra flour on hand when baking or working with pasta. Lightly sprinkle it on your working surface. What that's going to do is ensure the dough doesn't stick to the table. Using our rolling pin, just going to roll it out a little bit. What we're doing is we're rolling it out so as we put it through the pasta machine, it comes out evenly. There's nothing worse than putting thick pasta through the machine because it just doesn't work out great. What the pasta machine does is it takes your thicker dough, and then you're going to adjust these buttons right here. You can zoom in on this. And you could actually adjust different thicknesses. So what you do is when you use this, you start with the setting number 1, run it through a couple of times, then you go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I believe up to 7 depending on what kind of dough you want to do. We like to use fettuccine here at the restaurant, so we're only going to roll it to number 5. If we were making angel hair pasta, we roll it all the way to 7. Working back with it, we're getting nice and thin and we're spreading it out. The gluten's not activating as much. Notice how when we made the dough before, the ball was going like this, it stopped doing that. That's another sign that our dough is ready to be ran through the pasta maker. So from here, what we're going to do is we're going to use our bench scraper again. Go ahead and cut it in half. Not too thick, not too thin. KitchenAid, start off on a slow speed until you get the hang of rolling the pasta. What this is doing is it's pressing the pasta dough and stretching it out, so we're actually getting a thinner product. So we're going to run it through a couple of times. Notice how I'm holding it with the back of my hand. You don't want to hold it like this because, see how I put my finger there? It's going to leave an imprint on the dough. Using the back of my hands. So not only is the dough getting longer, but it's spreading it out. You'll notice there's all this extra room on the roller. As we increase those buttons, the numbers go up. The pasta is going to get wider and it's going to get longer. This is number 3. Number 4. And number 5. If the longer dough is hard for you to work with, go ahead and cut it in half using your bench scraper. Alright, so look at, we went from this to that. So just to give you an idea of how much pasta that little bit makes, we're looking pretty good. We're going to use our bench scraper, like I said, cut it in half. For fettuccine, however long our pasta is, that's how long our noodles are going to be. So I'm going to trim it up again. We're going to go into quarters. There's two things you can do from here. Before you get to this point, you can start boiling a pot of water and you can just dunk it in there. What I like to do is, for since we're a restaurant, we pre-cut our pasta ahead of time. What I usually do is I hang it from a hook. If you don't have a hook at home, feel free to use your rolling pin. You can just drape it over the edges like that, and then you can stick it under a weighted object. We'll just use the KitchenAid attachment as an example. So we've just taken our pasta off of our French rolling pin. It's been sitting now for about a half hour or so. It's starting to get a little bit firm. That's what we're looking for, and that's what we want. Notice the noodles aren't sticking together. That means we added just enough flour and not too much of it. So from here, we have a pot of boiling water, barely boiling, just about there. It could be boiling or it could be right below, just above simmer. We're gonna add it to the water. One of the things that sets this pasta apart is how quick it cooks. Now that our pasta has floated to the top, we're pretty much ready. Noodles are slightly al dente, which is what we're looking for. Place our noodles in a bowl. We're going to garnish them with some of our late summer ratatouille. If you'd like, just add a little sprinkle of Parmesan cheese. Bon appetit!